Well, welcome to today's Geospatial Talk. I'm going to get personal in this one, actually. This is going to be a little bit about my journey in the geospatial world and how I've sometimes felt like I've been pushing a rock up a hill, which is why the initial graphic animation was me doing exactly that. So the thesis that I'm evolving is this Geospatial 2.0 idea, and it's not any longer really about the technology. The technology is there. It's much more about the commercial growth of the geospatial industry and how I feel as though the commercial world is still stuck in kind of the 1.0 world. I've had that perspective for a long time, and I've suggested that in many of the organizations I worked for, particularly companies I worked for, and it's largely fallen on deaf ears, and in some cases it's actually got me in mild trouble for suggesting a different path to take or broadening the path. I think what we're talking about here is geospatial growth from a commercial side of it. We can have as much technology in the world as we want, but unless we apply the right commercial tools to actually bring solutions to customers that really solve their problems, we are going to continually be talking at our own belly buttons. And I thank Paul Sinnott in Ireland for his input on one of the posts that actually he wrote a post all about the identity crisis of GIS and how it's a silly thing, and I totally agree with him. But he raised an important point which I wanted to cover in this conversation. I think that we're living in a world which is disconnected at the moment. Again, forgive me for repeating myself, but there are really four components to Geospatial 2.0. From a technical perspective, there is the GIS platform, there's remote sensing, which is the data, there is artificial intelligence, which is new and evolving and automating and creating new ways for us to get answers out of data very quickly, and then there's real-time data, IoT. I'll leave that there because it's an important part of the story. So we've got the data components, we've got the platform components, but Paul pointed out to me that there is actually a fifth part to this, and this is really the heart of what I'm talking about. Before I jump to that, let me just make a point. We still live in a disconnected geospatial world. I know I've been talking about the fact we're seeing now these mergers and acquisitions where GIS and remote sensing are coming together under one umbrella, but we're still thinking and working in separate ways. GIS people still think in 2D mapping ways, remote sensing people still think in data ways. So ultimately, geospatial companies are largely selling, in the GIS world, they're selling services, and services is a really hard model to grow, particularly if you're working in a lot of cases as service providers for the Esri ecosystem. So, you're competing with all the other partners, all the other companies that are providing services to organizations. That's not really solving a problem per se, that's more setting up the system so people can use GIS. I'm generalizing here. Hard place to grow from. The remote sensing guys are selling data. Again, data doesn't really solve a problem per se. It's part of the story. It's one of the pieces of the problem. But more and more, people want a solution to a problem. And thanks to Joe F for his input, and I'll respond to your email, Joe, in the near future. But he provided me some really interesting thoughts on where all this stuff sits, and particularly the place of data. But I will say that data is not solving a problem. A platform is not solving a problem. It has these are the components that make up solving a problem, but it doesn't solve a problem. So where am I going with this? Let's go back to this fifth component of Geospatial 2.0, which is really the heart of the commercial conversation. We have to be thinking differently about how we talk about these different technologies, but most importantly, it's connecting the pieces, which is a critical part of the future of geospatial and at the heart of Geospatial 2.0. So from a commercial perspective, it's no longer just talking about services for GIS. That's a slow growth place to be. It's beginning to talk about how we bring these pieces together and solve real problems. So it's much less about the technology. It's all about the stories we tell, which are attached to actual problems. And that's really at the heart of this conversation, and where I've been challenged in my career, because I've always spoken about the fact that it's not about maps, it's not about the data per se, it's about solving a particular problem. If you looked at go read the talk that I did yesterday, and the post I put out, or the article I put out this morning based off of that talk, it's really talking about how we attack problems. And I give a really good example of some work I did with the DOTs focused around safety. So go look at that and you'll find out how we really start with a problem when we build back with the technology. So where am I going with this talk? I'm going with the fact we need to be dot connecting. I'm going with the fact that we need to start thinking about not just GIS on its own or remote sensing data on its own. We need to be thinking about what that combination can bring, but we need to start with the problem. So what is that problem that we're trying to look at? A lot of people have got their heads buried in the depths of the technology. And I see people that are very popular in, Matt Forrest is a great example. He's a great guy, he does some fantastic videos. He's a technical guy, he talks technical, he's followed massively. But we need to be talking from a commercial side about how we sell this technology and how we combine the pieces of this technology to actually solve real problems. So where I'm going to leave you with this conversation, and actually where I started and I'll end with, is that pushing of a rock up a hill. We need a new group of people who are able to look at the problem and build back into the technology. I'm looking down here because the input I've had on my articles has been interesting. It's those people who are knowledgeable, understand and can apply that technology to problems. Now that's a rare breed, and I'm actually one of those people, and it's been challenging in my career in many ways, because I've seen things that are clearly gaps in what people are doing, and I've suggested there's a different path to take, a wider path to take, a new approach. And inertia is a big thing, and standing up to people who have a very set idea about how to do things can be challenging. It's exactly why I've set up Gen AI Marketers, because we're more than a marketing company. We're really a growth company. We're really working between the product teams, the sales teams, and the marketing teams to actually extend and grow companies. So whether that be connecting the dots and bringing in this broad set of technologies to get at a particular problem, that might be combining 2D, 3D and 4D data in an easy to use viewer. It's also about developing new products as well. How do you come up with ideas? How do you use these different frameworks, design thinking to actually go there? So we're a growth focused company. I've always been a growth person, and that's where I've been sort of in my career, and again pushing a rock up a hill often with people with very fixed ideas about how we do things. The world's changing. Geospatial 2.0 is upon us. It's now up to the commercial world to play catch up, and that's at the heart of what I do. So thanks for everyone for your feedback on the articles I've written, and I'm really enjoying other people's thoughts on where we're moving to in this wonderful world of geospatial. If you like this talk, follow me on LinkedIn. If you are watching this on YouTube, then feel free to subscribe to the channel. We do a lot of these talks. And I actually have a newsletter that I produce every week. If you're interested in that and these type of conversations, feel free to subscribe to that newsletter. I'll leave a link to it off of this post, and I'll do another one of these very soon.